Hello, this is Kinninigan from RagingReptilian.com. Voice, yeah, not 100% yet, but we're going to talk about reptilians today. And the solar system is that not the coolest pic of the solar system you ever seen? Yes, that is a real JPEG pic. I love how illuminated the sun is. It's pretty cool. So this video, I'm going to give you an ancient history lesson of the names of the planets and where they come from and the different pantheons. But it was kind of inspired by this. This is a recent cuneiform tablet. Now this tablet was actually found in the 1800s and was conveniently hidden away in the British Museum because it basically confirmed that they had knowledge of the planet Jupiter's travel through the solar system in ancient Babylon, which is something only up until, well, I'm going to read the article. Should be able to read a little better today. You'll see up until, I believe it was like the 1600s when they weren't able to calculate the movement of the planets. But it gets better because I'm going to give you an ancient history lesson in the names of the planets. A mistake I made on one of the planets, which is Saturn, who I used to associate with Enlil, but that was wrong. It is actually Ninurta, so we're going to get a little lesson in that too, and ancient names of the planets. But I also have this to show you for some media to watch before we get into it here. This clip is about a minute and a half long, and I made this video on my other channel and covered it. This was a press release, September 30th. Don't mind that alert. I keep getting these. Screencast-O-Matic is having something cause that. Maybe they'll have to update it or something. I don't know. Anyway, so this press conference comes out September 30th, 2016, from Kazim Fijan, the Iraqi transport minister. Iraq is modern-day ancient Babylon, right here, in which he confirmed that the Anunnaki, though he doesn't call them reptilian, obviously, not only had that they had a quote-unquote spaceport. So, America wasn't the first man on the moon. Well, maybe we're the first humans, but maybe if you go up on the moon, there's a claw print somewhere. But I'm going to let you watch this, and then I'm going to read that article about conveniently, the cuneiform tablet that gets released now that basically proves that ancient Babylon had advanced astronomical knowledge. And then I'm going to give you a little lesson on why what the names of the planets are in the different pantheons and which gods they associate with, and the little mistake I made on Saturn and how it actually ties in with Saturnalian worship and the Kabbalah now. And that's through Ninurta. And that's through another ancient Sumerian wall relief that was found. So I'm using a lot of real evidence here to show you this. This is not conjecture. Anyway, I want you to watch this clip here from the Iraqi transport minister. I'm going to put the volume down just a little bit because usually it records pretty loud. I'm not going to talk over this. Now, he's speaking in what do they speak in Iraq? Is it Farsi or Persian? Arabic, I'm not sure. Could be one of those, but there's subtitles down at the bottom in English, so you're going to have to read along with them. But the translation is legit. Yeah, I even looked into this when this press conference came out. So, anyway, this clip's about a minute and a half long. I'm going to play it now.
وربما حتى قسم كبير من الناس في محافظة ذي قار لا يعلمون أن أول المطارات التي أنشئت في كوكب الأرض قبل 5000 سنة قبل الميلاد أنشئت في ذي قار. واللي ما يصدق يقرأ كتاب المؤرخ الكبير المتخصص في الدراسات السومرية زكريا سينشن، أو يعود إلى كتب صاموئيل كريمر، أو يعود إلى الكتاب الذي ألفه أجي ويلز حول هذا الموضوع، والذي يحمل عنوان باللغة الإنجليزية History Begins from Sumer. التاريخ يبدأ من سوبر كان يتكلم عن أولى المطارات التي أنشئت في كوكب الأرض أنشئت في هذا المكان، إن هذا المكان هو أأمن مكان تهبط فيه الطائرات وتقلع منه الطائرات، لأن هناك بعض المؤثرات الجوية التي تثقل تحركات الطائرة وتحد من مناورتها غير موجودة في مطار ذي قار. يعني في مش مطار ذي قار، في كل أجواء ذي قار أجواء آمنة للطائرات، ليست فيها أي مؤثرات جوية سلبية. كل ما يتوفر في أجواء ذي قار هو أجواء إيجابية، بمعنى أن السومريين لما استقروا في هذه الأرض كانوا يعلمون تماما أن هذه الأرض بأجواءها هي أجواء ملائمة للتحليق في الفضاءات، وكان من هنا تنطلق المركبات الفضائية السومرية نحو الكواكب الأخرى. والسومريين أول من اكتشف الكوكب رقم 12 الذي اعترفت به وكالة نازل الفضاء قبل بضعة أيام، والذي أطلقوا عليه ميبيرو، ويدور حول الشمس ب 3600.
Some half-truths and half-lies in there, as obviously. He mentions Zachariah Stitchem. We're not going to talk about that. Planet Nibiru. You never hear me talk about Nibiru. But he talks about a spaceport and making the reference to Zachariah Stitchem. That is a reptilian reference, because Zachariah Stitchem even taught the Anunnaki were reptilian. It's one thing that me and him both agree on, but not the way they actually look. So, this Babylonian astronomy text changes history. Now, this was released 1/28. 2016 is when this first came out. And it's really interesting. More than 1,000 years before the first telescopes, Babylonian astronomers tracked the motion of the planets across the night sky using simple arithmetic. But a newly translated text reveals that ancient stargazers also used far more advanced method, one that foreshadows the development of calculus over 1,000 years later. It's well-known fact that the Babylonians were skilled mathematical astronomers who preserved their knowledge on hundreds of clay tablets. But with astroarchaeologist Matthew Osen-Javier of Humboldt University in Berlin translated an unstudied text on Jupiter, he discovered something astonishing. To track the gas giant's path across the sky, the Babylonians used a geometric technique, the so-called the trapezoid procedure. Now, I mentioned order of the trapezoid in the video I made yesterday. There was a reason I did that. Yeah. That's a cornerstone of modern calculus. Until now, this method was believed to have been developed in medieval Europe some 1,400 years later. This shows just how highly developed this ancient culture was. Osen-Javier, whose discovery appears in today's Science, told Gizmodo, "I don't think anybody expected something like this would be discovered in a Babylonian text. This text belongs to a collection of thousands of clay tablets inscribed with cuneiform and excavated in Iraq during the 19th century. By translating and studying them over the past century, archaeologists have learned a great deal about Babylonians, including their advanced system of astronomy, which grew out of the development of the zodiac around 400 BCE. And the zodiac was created by Marduk, right there, the patron god of Babylon. Also, priests, Babylonian astronomers believed that all earthly happenings, the weather, the price of grain, the level of rivers, were connected to the motion of the planets and stars. And all the forces influencing our world from above, none were as important as Marduk, the patron deity of Babylon. He was associated with Jupiter. As Osen-Javier explains in his paper, approximately 340 known Babylonian astronomy tablets are filled with data on planetary and lunar positions arranged in rows and columns like a spreadsheet. Now, I have a theory about this also. I'll cover this maybe in a later video. Moons, or satellites. We have a moon. Saturn has moons. A lot of these gods, like Ninurta, Marduk, Enlil, they have sons and daughters. And I'm starting to think if these are also references to the planet's moons, whatever planet that deity is associated to. Just another thing that I want to look into in the future. Arranged in rows and columns like a spreadsheet. Another 110 are procedural, with instructions describing the arithmetical operations, addition, subtraction, and multiplication used to compute the positions of celestial objects. By one collection, a set of 4 tablets on the position of Jupiter appears to preserve portions of the procedure for calculating the area under a curve. These texts are fragmentary, and for decades their astronomical significance went unnoted. In 2014, Ossendriver discovered their instruction book. A tablet, he said, that just fell through the cracks has been collecting dust in the British Museum since 1881. Yeah. It's not a coincidence, I don't think, that this tablet gets released in 2016. We also have the press conference from him in 2016. This is not a coincidence. This is controlled leakage of information. It's not a coincidence. So anyway, here is the tablet here, which projects their calculations for predicting the path of Jupiter around the sun. The sun in Babylon is Utu, or Shamash. We'll get into that in a second. And what's really interesting is this is going to come into play when I go over the cult of Mithra from Rome, which I've been telling people I'll get to. But Pluto over here, and we'll get to this when we get to the names of the planets, is the god of the netherworld. You have Jesus, who is possibly represented by the sun. Pluto, god of the netherworld, or hell. Yeah, these there's a lot of metaphors in the solar system, even with different gods and different pantheons. We'll get into that in a second. So this basically proves that how do people come in Babylon just out of nowhere? They can't even explain, one, how the cities were built. And not only that, they have a spaceport, as you heard the Iraqi minister say. They have advanced knowledge of the movement of Jupiter through the solar system. Now, I'm not going to read the rest of this because you get the idea. They know how to figure out the ecliptic plane using advanced calculus. But I want to get into some more interesting things. This is a site. All these links will be in the description. This is something that I've always found very interesting, and that is the names of the planets and the deities associated with them. In the beginning, most ancient cultures recognized 7 planets. I know, we'll get to the other 3. Now this is interesting because we have the 7 tablets of creation in Sumeria, the tablets. 7 days of creation in the Bible. 7 is a heavy number in the occult. My birth date is 7/27/1977. I have a lot of 7s on my birthday. But I have nothing to do with Babylon, don't worry. 7 planets consisting of sun and moon, and 5 planets visible in the sky. The Latin names of the planets were simple translations of the Greek names, which in turn were translation of the Babylonian names, which go back to Sumerians. Same soup, different bowl. That's the metaphor I love using. Some interpretation was required for the Greek and even for the Babylonian translations. However, Nergal, for instance, was the god of war but also of pestilence, and especially the underworld, overlapping with the Greek Hades. While Kronos was the father of Zeus, Ninurta was the son of Enlil. The Babylonians replaced the Sumerian national gods Enlil and Enki with the patron god of Babylon, Marduk, and his son Nabu. Though Marduk was actually taken to be the son of Enki, called Ea in Babylonian, Ea is the first part of eagle, remember that. Ninurta, an obscure god inherited by the Babylonians, may have been identified with Saturn. This gets really interesting. The slowest moving visible planet, because at least in one story he was identified with the turtle. The ancient Egyptian, Sanskrit, and Chinese names for the planets are unrelated to the Sumerian. Now, in English, the moon is Nana or Inanna in Sumerian, Sin in Babylonian, Selene in Greek, and Luna in Latin. A or Ea in Egyptian, Shaja in Sanskrit. Now we have the Mandarin, Chinese, Japanese, and Vietnamese translations here too. If you want to, I'm not going to attempt to read these, especially with my throat the way it is. There's no way I'm reading Mandarin Chinese. I have a friend who's Chinese who's probably watching this video and he's laughing. These numbers next to the, this is the English translation of Chinese. These numbers that you see here, and it's down at the bottom here, these are tones in Chinese. The same word can be spoken 10 different ways. Mandarin Chinese, I believe, has 9 different tones. I could be wrong about that. First tone, high and flat. Second tone, rising. Third tone, low, falling, then rising. Fourth tone, falling. Each way that you say those syllables, depending on those rising, you have the highs and flats, gives the word a totally different meaning. We kind of use that in slang in English, so you get the idea. But that's, in a nutshell, how basic. Chinese is very difficult to learn. Vietnamese works a little different. Japanese works different too. My Japanese actually ain't that bad, but I'm not going to try it right now. I'm more worried about the Sumerian, Babylonian, Greek, and Latin. The Egyptian to an extent, and then we have the Sanskrit, which is Shaja. Mercury is Enki. In Babylonian, that's Nabu. In Greece, that's Hermes. Latin, that's Mercurius. Egyptian, that's Sabgu. Sanskrit, that's Buddha. Venus is Inanna. Now you'll notice too, all the English ones are the Latin ones, kind of basically in a nutshell. You get the idea, even though Latin is a dead language. In Sumerian, that is Inanna. In Babylonian, that's Ishtar. Greek, that's Aphrodite. Latin, that's Venus. Egyptian, that's Ba'a or Sibu Daji. And in Sanskrit, that's Sukra. The sun in Sumerian is Utu. Babylon, it's Shamash. Greek is Helios. Latin is Sol. Egyptian is Aten. Sanskrit is Surya. Mars in Sumerian is Gugalana. Babylonian, it's Nagal. Greek, it's Ares. Latin is Mars. Egyptian is Hiru Dishet. Sanskrit is Mangala. Jupiter in Sumerian is Enlil. Babylonian, it's Marduk. And I believe the sun, you know, we'll talk about like the moons in another video, like I was saying with that. Greek, it's Zeus. Latin, it's Ipiter. Egyptian is Her Wepestawi. In Sanskrit, it's Bashaspati. Saturn in Sumerian is Ninurta. Now this is really interesting because both in Sumerian and Babylonian, Saturn is Ninurta. Now, in Greek, it's Kronos. Latin, it's Saturnus. There was no Egyptian word for the planet Saturn. Very interesting. Sanskrit is Sani. Now, I know you're thinking, where's the other planets? Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Well, this is interesting. We have Alpha-Draconian. The 3 planets on the outside, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. I don't know if this could be a Mandela effect. No, I'm just kidding. But they only refer to the 7, including the sun and moon. And then Uranus is the king of heaven. Neptune is the king of the sea. And Pluto is the king of the netherworld. What's really interesting about Uranus, okay, Ur and anus are the 2 words that make that up. Yeah, laugh about that one. But Ur, right here, is actually a city out of Sumeria. So, and I'm going to end the video with this. So what's so interesting about Ninurta and the mistake I made? Well, here's one representation of Ninurta right here. And obviously you see these dragon-like creatures with him. There's the wings here, the typical wings associated with the Anunnaki. He's taking them down with a bow. But this is another relief I found, which is really interesting. I didn't make the circles on here. I found this on Google, but this wall relief is very difficult to find. This is the only one I could find of it. That is Ninurta right there. And yes, that is the Kybalion. Now it makes sense as to why Ninurta is associated with Saturn in both Sumeria and Babylon, and how this ties with all things of Jewish, Kabbalistic, mysticism, and the worship of Saturn, Saturnalianism, the brotherhood of Saturn. Makes sense now. So, that is my, I think that's about all I'm going to be able to read with my voice here. I'm trying. But, anyway, if you find this, all these links will be in the description. I think I'm going to make that the thumbnail image. I love this picture of the solar system. It's just really, the sun is kind of surreal, or Shamu, Utu, Sol, call them whatever you want. So Jupiter becomes the biggest god in all the pantheons. You get that. Marduk, Zeus, and they're all associated with planets. We'll tie more into the sun, or Mithra, when I do the cults of Rome and Mithraism, which is the next one. All these stories tie together. It's like a big puzzle I've been putting together about Mystery Babylon over the years. Anyway, all the links will be in the description, including this video here. This video, in case you're wondering where it actually starts, the press conference, I'll leave the link in the description. 102 in the video. The beginning is just like an intro from the uploader. And, however, it's highly interesting. Anyway, any questions or comments, leave them below. And until we speak again, this is Kinninigan, and take care.